You'll excuse them. The February 21st meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. Will you please all join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board wants to welcome all of you this evening. We have a nice crowd. I assume you're staying for the whole meeting. I keep trying that. We also want to welcome those that are joining us online. Mrs. Martin, would you please report our attendance?
8 board members present tonight. Mr. Talley is absent.
Okay, and then we have a quorum. Also in attendance is the superintendent and the administrative cabinet. This is our second meeting of the month where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on the consent agenda, which includes those items which are routine and have been discussed at last week's meeting. Our meetings observe the requirements of the school code, legislative directives, the original Act 84 Sunshine Law, all subsequent amendments, judicial rulings, applicable regulations, and district policies to the best of our knowledge and responsibility. All agendas and related public documents are posted on the district website. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I will talk about some changes to the superintendent's report at my superintendent comments.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to make clear was in the consent agenda, number K, that approval is not of a compensation study. It's of a, it's not the final study. It's approval of the proposal to do one. Other than that, if there are none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board commendations. Every month, the board takes this opportunity to recognize the exceptional achievements by some of its students and staff. Congratulations go to Conestoga Valley High School senior violinist Holland Helsel, who, as she participated in the PMEA, Pennsylvania Music Educators Association, District 7 Orchestra Festival held from January 26 to 28 at Cumberland Valley High School. The festival is a highly competitive auditioned orchestra comprised of students from Lancaster, Lebanon, York, Adams, Cumberland, Perry, Franklin, and Dauphin counties. Congratulations to 2 members of the Conestoga Valley High School rifle team who earned postseason recognition following the Lancaster Lebanon League Championships on February 10th held at CV High School. Freshman Dominic Santamaria was named an All-League star with a student average of 99.08 out of 100. He placed 10th in the LL Championships. Senior Sierra Land took 3rd place at the championship with a perfect 200 score. And I don't know how you get 3rd if you had a perfect score. Conestoga Valley again served as the host of the TSA Technical Students Association regional competition on January 28th. The high school hosted over 271 students in grades 6 through 12 from Lancaster, Lebanon, and Berks County who competed in over 50 different events. CV high school students shone in the regional competition with 25 top 3 finishes and 10 first-place victories. CV's middle school students, including the son of one of our board members, dominated as well, with 18 top 3 finishes and 8 first-place finishes. In total, CV students took home gold in 18 different events between middle and high school students, boasted 43 top 3 finishes and tallied 45 top 5 finish. Congratulations to our TSA students. I would also add that there were 22 staff members plus the catering staff, a number of local businesses that helped sponsor that, WGAL. I got the full report, of course. Google, Clark Foundation, High Structures, Stevens College, Millersville University, and many other judges from the community. It was an exceptionally good year. The Conestoga Valley School District hosted the Harlem Wizards on February 10th in a fundraiser to raise money for the Conestoga Valley Buckskins Activity Alliance. Over 1,000 people attended the basketball game and over $13,000 was raised. Thanks to BAA President Shelley Myers, who spearheaded the fundraising event, along with help from other BAA board members and CV Athletic Director Dina Hendrick. Congratulations to 14 student athletes at Conestoga Valley High School who have committed to playing their respective sports at the college level after graduation this spring. They were recognized on February 1st at the school's National Signing Day ceremony and are listed with this document. And from there, superintendent's comments.
Thank you, Madam President. As I mentioned, you'll notice 3 changes to the superintendent's report highlighted in red. After the agenda was posted on Friday, I was able to conduct an interview for the open position for music at the middle school and make an offer to Amy Delaney, and you'll learn a little bit more about Amy in a minute. You'll also notice changes in the percentages of extracurricular coverage in track and field for Steve Bond and Keith Hershey. Finally, Adele Hunsinger's name has been removed from the acting CFO to permanent CFO as we complete the legal review of our contract. I'd like to thank the administrators and teacher leaders who continue to find outstanding educators as we still receive last-minute resignations. In speaking with the other superintendents of Lancaster and Lebanon counties, we have never had a year with so many mid-year resignations and transfers. It just seems like everybody gets up and we rotate. So we lose one, we pick one up. That's how it's going for all 22 of the districts. We are fortunate to introduce 3 high-quality educators who will be making a positive impact on our students. I'd like to first welcome Jennifer Harrington. Jennifer, I believe you're here. There's Jennifer. Jennifer got her bachelor's degree from Boston College. That's up there in Massachusetts. And then followed that up with a master's of art in elementary. I meant to say it's bachelor's in mathematics. And then he followed up with a master's of arts in elementary education from Simmons College, also up in Boston area. She also got a reading specialist degree from Eastern Mennonite University. Jennifer started teaching with us in January to start the 2nd semester. She's our ESL teacher at Loyola and Brownstown. She comes to us via State College. While she was at State College, she ran an ESL STEM summer program, which is pretty cool to, during the interview, to listen and hear all about that. And she also did a number of years working for the Diocese of Harrisburg at St. Leo's Elementary. And she started out, of course, in Boston for about 2 years. So again, Jennifer, welcome to CV.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say?
I'm just excited to work for you, and my dad also taught for 35 years in CV, so I'm happy to follow his footsteps.
Awesome. Amy Delaney. There you are. Amy's commitment to students is obvious. Knowing she would be held for 60 days at her current district, and knowing that time frame would put her in the last month of school, and more importantly, right in the middle of her school's end-of-year musical performance season, Amy did not want to let her students down. So she offered to start with us the beginning of the 23-24 school year. A prominent belief of this Westchester University graduate is that her goal is to, quote, help students discover their innate musical ability. You all have musical ability. And to explore their musicality to the highest potential. We can't see that potential realized at the middle school. Amy, welcome. And last one, Travis Jones. Travis is coming to us from the School District of Lancaster, where he is the assistant principal. And while his experience is primarily at the elementary level, the high school faculty who were part of the interview process unanimously recommended him as the next high school assistant principal. Travis earned his bachelor's degree in early childhood and elementary education from Widener University, and his master's degree in education and a K-12 administrative certification from Cabrini University. His experience with PBIS, I learned all about that, and MTSS translate across all grade levels. We look forward to his positive impact at the high school. Travis, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have for tonight, Madam President.
Okay, any board members have any comments about district activities? If not, do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
If we have none, I'm going to allow Dr. Z to introduce the student report.
You bet. I am very happy to introduce Principal at Leola, Ms. Eloise, and Ms. Snader, the math specialist at Leola, and more importantly, the students, and I'll let you take care of those introductions.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm just going to give a little bit of a background on Origo, an update, and then I'll call some of our students up. So we implemented our new math program. If you want to switch this.
Let me know when.
Yep. Some of the beliefs of Origo is that learning is a social process. So there's a lot of student discourse and student discussion in that. Another belief is students develop strong thinking and problem solving and communication skills to grow into that innovative member of society. The content is taught conceptually. We call it the CRA model, which you'll see in the next slide, but it's conceptual to representational to an abstract learning. And their last belief that I have here is technology empowers rather than replaces educators. This is a triangle, the teaching model of Origo. Down at the bottom, the experience. We have everyday material. We're using everyday materials and everyday language. And as we go up, the resources go from everyday materials to classroom materials. Those are our concrete that the students are using to build that conceptual knowledge. And then we move into our pictures and finally the abstract and the symbols. On the discourse side, we have students using the everyday language, which as they learn and grow and understand, build that deeper understanding, they're moving to material language and mathematical language. Our implementation timeline: in the summer, the math specialists from all 4 elementary schools offered a sneak peek for teachers. So it was optional. We had a great turnout for that. And then all fall, the math specialists were given training, and we continue to get regular training through our Origo rep. Back up one step, you don't need to change anything. But in October, the math specialists also have provided at our PD day some professional development for our teachers. And then in November, right before they were ready to start teaching, we had met with all the grade level teachers. We planned the first few lessons with them so that we could walk them through what a lesson should look like and where to find everything. And then right after Thanksgiving break, the teachers dove in and they started to teach Origo. Like I said, we're continuing to get training through our Origo rep. We Zoom with them monthly and ask them questions based on teacher feedback or just they're teaching us new things that's part of the curriculum that we haven't learned a lot about yet. We're very excited. Coming up very shortly, March 6th and 7th, Dr. Sarah Moore, who is our Origo rep, is coming to CV. On March 6th, she's going to do classroom visits for all of the elementary schools to give us some more information. What are we implementing well? What do we need to work on? And then at the end of the day, she's going to stay and teachers are able to come to Leola, and we're going to have a question and answer forum with Dr. Sarah Moore. Then on the 7th, all of the elementary schools build teachers from primary, intermediate, and special ed to represent our building level implementation team. So that training will take place on March 7th. And then in the summer, in June, Dr. Moore and some Origo reps will be coming back to CV to offer additional professional development opportunities for our teachers. So now we have some students that weren't able to be here. We wanted to bring them through video, so we have a few videos for you.
We just sprayed this. Just working.
They're not loading.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned that they gave you some starting lessons. Do those lessons carry through the whole year, that where all teachers would have similar lessons at the same time?
Yes, so the math specialists, along with Dr. Kozer, have created pacing guides for our teachers. So we looked at all of the lessons and the modules, and for each grade level, we put together about how many days it should take for them to go through the lessons, and they each have their
And
own.
they have the lessons, so they,
Yes,
my other question is, what grade does this start in?
kindergarten.
Well, what do you do this year with someone that's already in fourth
What is your
grade?
favorite part about it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What do you do with a student that's already in fourth grade?
So they're picking up right where with the Origo lesson. So they would have had in third grade, we didn't teach Origo, but through Math and Focus, they had all of the
Oh,
standards.
so they can
So-
enter this midway?
Yes,
Okay.
so some of the language changes a little bit when you change specifically between Math and Focus and Origo, but the teachers are good at making those connections for students so that they have a deeper understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
When we have the color and clarity.
I'll play that one again.
What is your favorite part about Oreo? When we have
It's coming here, isn't it?
to color and clarity and then write the fraction next to it. What is your favorite thing about Orzo? The student math journal, because it shows you how to solve math problems step by step. Tell me about a time you used manipulatives in your math class. Well, one day we used geostrips to make triangles. We traced them, measured the angles, measured the sides, and it was really helpful. What is your favorite thing about Orgo? How you can have like a practice round, and then if you get stuck on a question, you can go back and look at what they said.
All right, so I invited Nora here. She is very excited to be here with me. She did have a friend coming, but her friend got sick today, so it's just going to be her and I. So we're going to do an activity that she did in class, and this focused on the skill subitizing, which is looking at something and being able to tell what the number is, using her counting on strategy and adding numbers to 10. All right, you ready, Nora?
Yes.
All right. So she's gonna pick a paper from her bag.
I got 3.
3. All right, go ahead on our number line and show me what 3 looks like. I'm gonna pick a number. I also got 3, Nora. So I'm gonna put 3 pennies. All right, so what would our number sentence be? Right, you wanna hold it up and show them and read it to them?
3 plus 3 equals 6.
And how
Very
did you
good.
know that?
I don't know.
You just knew it? Did you use the number line to help you, or did you use a different strategy? You used the number line. All right, should we do one more?
Yes.
All right.
And she doesn't get to keep pennies?
We've been practicing. She has lots of them. All right? All right, go ahead and pick another one.
One.
1. All right, go ahead and show us what 1 is on our number line. How many did I get?
5.
5. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
All right, hold it up and show everyone.
Very good.
What does it say?
1 plus 5 equals 6.
All right, and did you use a strategy to help you with that? You use the number line as well. All right. Thank you, Nora. You did an awesome job. All right. And then I have some fifth graders who, as you heard in the video, the one fifth grader was talking about measuring angles and using geostrips. So we brought that activity along with some of my fifth grade friends. So if you guys want to come up. Get this stuff out of the way.
I'm sorry, I wasn't really clicking on it. We just watched that.
All right. Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Oh, gosh.
Go ahead, you can start.
Hi, my name is Haley Weiler, and I go to Leola Elementary.
My name's Allie Mallings, and I go to Leola Elementary.
My name is Mikey Quanner. I go to Leola Elementary.
My name is Jaden Lindy and I go to Leola Elementary.
Dad, you want to come up over here and take a picture of them? You can do that over on the side here.
All right, you want to take a pencil?
You can go over there by Miss Eloise.
There's one for you, Haley. All right, and our packs. This, I think, is Allie. We have Jaden. Mikey. And Haley. All right. Guys, you want to open your packs and you can make a triangle that has all three sides that are the same length. You can let them out after it's easier. All right, you want to hold them up then when you're done? All right, what do you notice? That's okay. What do you notice? Haley?
They all have equal sides and they're all different colors.
All right, good. Do you notice anything else? Anyone? They all have equal sides, but they're all different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we call that? A triangle that has all equal sides. Allie?
An equilateral.
An equilateral triangle. Go ahead and trace it and then measure the angles. So this is the activity that they were doing when they were identifying triangles and measuring lengths, sides, and angles. Are you missing a protractor?
This one.
Oh.
Got past that.
Finished. What do you notice? Do you notice anything about your angles? Jaden?
They're all 60 and it all equals up to 180.
Okay, so all of your angles are 60. What about yours, Mikey?
Same as his.
Same as his. You both had green triangles, right? What about yours, Allie?
I'll add up just 180,
Okay, and what was each angle?
60.
60?
Each of my angles were 60 and they all added up to 180.
Okay, but Allie's triangle and Haley's triangle were different from yours, but they still added up to, or they still had, the angles were 60 degrees, right? So what does that tell us about equilateral triangles? Haley?
They're always equal no matter what size they are.
All right, so we could have big triangles as long as all three sides are the same. They all have the same angles, same sides, same angles, or an equilateral triangle. And then they did a similar activity to show isosceles triangles and scaling triangles when they were in class. All right, thank you guys. Do you have any questions? Great
I'm just scared to keep protracting, it's still a basic. Beth, do you use any technology to show them expanding triangles? I've seen programs like that.
So they have, within Origo, they have games, they have online tools that teachers have access to. And in the lessons, thank you, I'm sorry. In the lessons, it directs them to that. So there's from hundreds charts to coins to dice games, everything
And
is
they
all
can
inclusive.
see these shapes
Yes.
changing.
Yes.
I had one other question too.
Yeah.
I know one of the benefits to Origo was the parent interface kind of piece of that. Have you gotten any parents kind of like tested the waters with that stuff yet, just out of curiosity?
Not that I'm aware of, they'd probably direct that more toward the classroom teachers.
Yeah, probably.
I've talked to some parents who have gotten the newsletter. Some of the teachers send out the newsletters, and they went on and watched some of those 1-minute videos. And they had the feedback was that they were very helpful in helping their student with them.
Yeah, that was the cool piece. I think for a lot of us parents, it's hard to remember how to help our kids.
Yeah, and those 1-minute videos, they're short and to
Yeah.
the point, but they're very helpful.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where they all leave, so we need to give them a minute to pack out. Our next report comes from VIA.
Good evening.
I was gonna say, this is Lisa Smith, she's our
Yes.
District
Oh,
VIA,
yes.
District VIA Coordinator.
Yes, I am really happy to be with you all this evening to update you on what is happening with the Volunteers in Action here at CV. We've had a few changes since I spoke to y'all in August. Because Mrs. Cassay left, she was our administrative representative. I am now being helped greatly by Mrs. Upton in the back there. And she and I are working together. We've had several meetings and we're on track to keep VIA just rolling right along. We've added some new building coordinators as well. Brownstown and Leola each now have 2 representatives instead of 1. However, Fritz lost 2. They lost both of theirs because the ladies got full-time jobs and couldn't really be in the school. When we found 1 replacement, I worked with Mrs. Strasburg and the staff at Fritz, and then I had Katie Odell send out a specific email just to Fritz families, and that's where we ended up finding our new coordinator for Fritz. Up on the screen is the PDF of our hours through January. As you can see, we're doing very well, having people back in the buildings, doing everything. And we are working towards having more hours this year than we had during the entire 21-22 school year. Last year we had 4,200 hours, and right now we are at 3,356 and a quarter through January. So fingers crossed we get there. The big news, we got a new logo. We got a new logo. And we had 3 ideas to choose from, and all of my building coordinators voted. And this is the logo that will be on everybody's polo shirts. It'll also have our name. This one was done but didn't have the name done yet, so it'll go back. It will make us definitely more identifiable in the buildings and to the families. And we have a different logo for the tablecloths because we're also having tablecloths made for our events. And that's the one that's on the screen right now. It's a wider logo, and we figured it would look better than a round one on a tablecloth. And because we have two logos to choose from, we'll be able to pull out portions of these logos whenever we need them for social media, promoting VIA in the district, and things of that nature. And I want to thank the following people for their help with this project. Dr. Kosher, who funded the shirts and the tablecloths for VIA, Paige Hurdle and Sierra Land, who are students in Mr. Howard's Tech Ed class, they designed these logos. They looked at all the logos that CV has, and they came up with, I mean, my first page had, I don't know, 10 or 12. And, but thankfully, Katie Odell kind of stepped in and guided them a little bit and got it down to 3. So we had 3 that we finally choose, that the building coordinators helped to choose from. And I definitely want to help acknowledge the building coordinators, because they do all the work in the buildings, keeping things running, and they had a hand in the final decision on the logo. And we'll be able to connect with people. They'll know immediately that we're volunteers and we represent the district. This year so far at our meetings, in September, we had Mrs. Groff and Dr. Z. In October, it was our social workers, Katie Reif, Carla DiClemente, and Jenna Mabel. In November, we had Kristen Hershey from Seeds, the new program. That was like very eye-opening, everything that they're gonna do. We did not have a meeting in December because we were helping with the senior citizen breakfast and the shop with a buckskin. And then in January, we did not have a meeting. In February, we worked with Dr. Kosher and Sarah Yo to get the kindergarten registration packets all put together so they could be handed out for that event. And at our remaining meetings, we look forward to hearing from the new Smoketown principal at our March meeting, Ms. Hernandez. April 13th, put this on your calendar. This is our breakfast, our volunteer appreciation breakfast. All of you will be invited, and we hope that you can attend if you are able. We look forward to seeing you. And then May 4th will be our final meeting for the year, and we will start planning for year number 48 for VIA. And over the summer, I will continue to meet with Mrs. Upton, and we will work on our vision for VIA and the guest speakers for the 23-24 school year. And I will be reaching out to the principals in all the buildings to see how we can change things, make things better, what went well, what didn't this past year. And I will be working with Katie Odell to revise our brochures that are like 4 years old. So we're gonna have to do them here, and then in a couple of years for 50, we'll make a big, nice new splashy one for that too. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions? I will send a message to you. I know you had a meeting with our superintendent search advisor,
Yes.
and he came back to me and he said that is the best volunteer organization in the state. And I had to agree.
Yeah.
We
Thank
take
you
great
so
pride
much
in knowing
for all
that.
you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point in the meeting, if there's anyone from the public who would like to address the board, would you please identify yourself? If not, then we'll move on. Are there any comments from CBEA? Or-
Mr. Walker's in the back, he said no.
No? Any other employee groups? If not, we'll get on with our business. Our first is the consent agenda, items A through K. Are there any questions before we take a motion? If not, we'll entertain that motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Dillman?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Brock?
Aye. That completed, I think Dr. Mann has the calendar to provide us with for next year.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. I have the 23-24 proposed calendar for you for next year. The committee that meets on the calendar is comprised of teacher representatives from each building, administrative representative voted on by like elementary and secondary and so forth, a couple parents, board member, and myself. So we meet and look at upcoming needs and so forth. The calendar in and of itself really hasn't changed that much, and this calendar is similar in that capacity. You can see that it has the first day of school on August the 23rd, and the last day of school is June 5th, with graduation being on June 4th, because that's what the date we have reserved the location. So that's why there's a discrepancy there. Just a couple things to point out to make sure you understand what you're looking at here. The numbers at each of the month, for example, looking at August, S means student, T means teacher, and so that's referring to 7 student days and then 12 teacher contractual days fall within that month. Okay, and so as you go down through there, you can see, they don't always agree, or not always the same. Not sure there's any much more to say other than it's a pretty standard calendar.
And this will be reformatted.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
We'll give it to
it looks prettier.
Katie, right, she'll make it look much nicer.
Katie,
Yeah.
Was there any discussion about the concern I forwarded to you about 4 weeks?
No, because that came after we were done meeting.
Okay.
However, I can comment on that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Sure. So there was a concern about like the 5-day weeks or 5-day. Right.
Yeah.
This current calendar we have 23. So I went back because I wasn't sure myself, like how many typically do we have? So I went back and looked past like 15 years, and it varies between 23 and 26 5-day weeks in the calendar, and a lot of it depends on when the holidays fall, the start of the school year. So over those years, sometimes we start a little earlier, a little later, and again, depending where the holidays fall, that impacts it. Other things of interest is the contractual obligations that we have. So some of that is unique. Each district's a little unique. An example of how we're unique is in January, we have to have what's called a clerical day for the high school staff by contract. And so that throws an additional day off, so to speak, in that month. Other districts don't necessarily have that if they don't have a contractual obligation there. So that's an example of a unique situation for us. And so those things impact the number of weeks where they fall. I highlight that one as an example of, you have 2 semesters, right, for the high school, 90 days, 90 days. And you try and keep that as close as you can, obviously, but you need to move that a little bit depending on where the holidays, again, fall. And so next year, you can see that the 15th is Martin Luther King Day, and then the 22nd is the clerical day. This current year, they fall on the 15th and that Friday, right? So that's how it was this current year. One of the things that I've learned over the years in doing this is you can't make everyone happy. Because some of the complaints I got this year was they're both in the same week. Well, we try to avoid that as much as we can, and we try not to let it end up like on Wednesday, like that week. So we try and push it this way or push it towards Martin Luther King Day, depending on when we have that level of flexibility to do that. Next year, it made the most sense to move it to the following week. All right, so there's an example of now I got 2 4-day weeks. And so it just, it's one of those ebb and flow type of things. I agree that it's important to have consistency and predictability in schedules. I mean, as a father of 3 intellectually disabled children, I understand 100% and so forth. But I also understand there's the schedules of schools. Give you an example. Friday we were off, right? And so for us, that was a PD day or professional collaboration day. If you go around the area, every other district was off as well. including the IU, the CTC, and so forth. So if we were in session that day, which we could be, I mean, it's not a contractual obligation, we could move that somewhere else, then we have a portion of our students that couldn't attend school. Because CTC's closed, the IU's closed, you know, other places where we have students attend. So you gotta look at things like that as well and play, you know, say, all right, what makes the most sense, and so forth. So,
So there's no way we can control this, so we're
well,
at the mercy of the calendar.
yeah, there are some things that we could do. I mean, when I say little things, I mean, to maybe get an additional week or two, but there's really, you know, you're limited.
You mentioned other schools that also have PDE days. Isn't that when the IU sometimes used to have PDE for special ed teachers, so you could get them from all around the county?
On the 15th?
I don't know when, but they used to try to get all the schools to each pick one PDE day so that they could gather their staff correctly,
Yeah,
which is spread all over the county.
Columbus Day.
right, well, so a lot of schools look at February, that day there, but also the Friday before Columbus Day
Okay.
is typically one of those days as well.
Well, this goes on every year.
Yeah.
Every parent goes through it. And some years it's much worse than this. I remember a year when we went all the way to New Year's holidays and never had a full week of school. It's just sometimes that's where it is. And we can't move Labor Day, and that often throws everything off.
I think the example you gave, though, trying to coordinate with the IU and CTC is very helpful. Because I think a lot of people, myself included,
Yeah,
just look at this
right.
and have questions without a greater understanding
Right.
of some of the dynamics in the background. So I think
Yeah.
that's very helpful.
Yeah. Another example of that is the start of the school year, right? So we start, next year, our proposed date is the 23rd. And so a few years, probably 10 now, we, as a committee, talked about trying to get as much instructional time in front of the testing as possible, in front of your Keystone testing and your PSSA testing, right? But there's a limitation as to how far out you can go because of just that point that, you know, when are the other districts starting? When's the IU starting? When's the CTC starting up? Again, we don't want to put our students at a disadvantage that are attending those programs. So again, we can push it a little bit, but you know, you want to stay close to those others as much as possible.
Is that also why we no longer end in May? So years ago, we were done in May,
So, yeah, so.
which was nice.
Yeah, I know. I went back and looked, and there was a couple years where we did, like, May 31st or that
Yeah.
Friday, yep.
Yeah, those
Yep.
days.
And some of that's that. Some of that's also, like, we started a day or two earlier that year, and I think, because I went back and found one of those calendars, and I think that, like, we either went to school on Columbus Day or did something. There were couple different things that gave us that opportunity to do that. And they also
We
know.
missed it by a couple days.
I
so,
know.
like,
And we knew that would spoil people. We knew back
I was
then.
spoiled because that's when my kids started school in the district.
Yeah,
May was,
yeah.
we had all of June to.
Yeah, and to that point there, again, just as an example that you can't make everyone happy, is when had those years where we were able to finish early, people didn't like that because the swimming pool water was too cold then. And it's warmer in August, and so start later.
The beach house is cheap for that.
That's true, exactly right. I mean, again, just to be serious, I mean,
Yeah.
you're trying to make the best decisions you can, and, you know, in looking at that, you know, it's one of those things, when we looked at this particular calendar, where the days ended up, we were actually sitting at maybe like June 3rd, June 4th as the last day, and that doesn't make sense, ending on a Monday or on a Tuesday, saying, okay, let's go back into the calendar and say, all right, where do we have a little room to maybe move something to push us a little further, you know, so, yeah. And then there were a couple years, 2004, 2005, I think 2006, when we were renovating high school. We intentionally did that. You know, Roy tightened it up because of construction, to get out of the building early, so that the summer would be as long as possible.
Wonder if I'll have to look into that in upcoming years.
What's that?
Wonder if I'll have to look in that upcoming years with moving schools.
You never know.
Think about that.
I just want to say that I appreciate that we have a calendar committee because not every district has one and it gets very messy. So I appreciate that we have all the stakeholders involved. It's enlightening to sit in on and to everybody discuss what's most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get even 5 people in a room and have them all like all the dates on the calendar. So
Right.
I'm prone to saying if everybody's a little bit unhappy, you probably did it right.
Yeah, right, and you try and take everything into consideration and, make the best decision you can. And there's, as people have different opinions and, we've, in the past have pulled the entire professional staff, send out, all right, here's what the committee's thinking, respond to that. So you do that. We've had years where each building has representatives and we say, okay, guys, here's what we're thinking, here, do some pre-work, like this year we just said, do some pre-work, talk about the current calendar, things you like, things you want to keep, toss, or revise. And so they came with that information and we talked about that. And then I created 2 drafts of a calendar based on that first level of discussion. This was one of the drafts. The other draft is, I'm drawing a blank, why it was so different, why it was different.
I think we didn't have the Monday after Thanksgiving and the January, the
Second.
second was like dicey, people were
Right.
on that.
And there's-
I think those were the two.
It started later.
Yeah.
So it started at, right, correct, that was the big thing. Which then pushed those guys there,
Yeah.
so that no one liked, and so that didn't make it off the table. And so then you get that feedback and again, you try and do the best you
I
can.
think what people have to realize is we don't do this unaware, that this calendar literally runs a lot of people's lives.
Mhm.
And we understand that there's always days that, don't match, and every now and then there's one that's just perfect. And of course, every kid has to make sure that we're having school on their birthday. Important things to remember. Thank you, and
Sure.
and your staff and the committee that juggle all these dates. It would make me cross-eyed.
Yeah.
I was on that committee once, that was enough.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is an
Next
action
up.
item.
We have to approve
This is an
that.
action item.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, yes. Could we please have a motion to approve the calendar for next year?
Motion to approve the 23-24 school calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or
Thank you.
it passes. Next would be Dr. Kozer. This is, I understand, a required
This is,
program.
so Thursday, I like to bring things to you, the meeting before Thursday was our big regional pre-K counts meeting where we received a lot more information from Octal representatives about this rebid. So one of the required components is a community needs assessment. And the reason that I'm asking to contract with Mike McKenna for this is we were told on Thursday that we should consider this everybody has 0 slots. It's a highly competitive rebid. You're starting from square one. Do not make any assumptions about anything. And so we want to make sure that this needs assessment accurately captures not just our needs, but if you recall, we're going to be partnering with several other organizations. We also need to capture their needs for their communities and their organizations as well. And so Octal provided us with new resources of where to pull that data from. And so I'm asking for approval in this proposal to have Mike work through all of that for us. It's a 16 to 20 hour project that for $2,000 could end up getting us $1 million a year over 5 years. So it's a critical piece of this in writing the application and in establishing the context for the need for the pre-K slots.
Questions? Do you want to tell everyone what Octal is, Dr.?
The Office of Child Development and Early Learning. So it is a bridge office between the Department of Human Services, which oversees all of the child care pieces, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education, which oversees the school programs. So they created this in-between office, Octal, that talks to both of the worlds that early childhood providers live in.
So is that just for PA or is that at federal level?
Octel is PA's version of how to make sure that those two things, childcare centers and state-funded pre-K, talk to one another.
A lot of these programs are a mix because funds go from the feds to state and then to us. I don't know how much got lost in between there, but a lot of pass-through funds and a lot of pass-through regulations that follow with it.
And I know this is a fairly low cost, but just because you mentioned that the requirement is to also assess the needs for the other organizations that we're partnering with, do they have a piece of the pie that they have to pay with this, or?
Not with this piece in particular, but that's a piece we look at on the back end of our budget then, is what indirect we would take to help support the partner programs.
Gotcha, okay.
Any questions? And we need to approve this one too, right?
Yes, please.
I have a motion to approve this assessment agreement.
So moved.
Second.
We have a roll call vote on this, please.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mr. Gilman?
Aye.
Mrs. Capco?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin? Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mrs. Grow?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions or comments about the finance and operations report? I noticed one thing in there that I thought was rather unique. It talked about notifying parents that they're behind in their children's lunch fees. And we're using the public relations office to do that instead of asking the food service people to handle that. I think that's probably a really good way to have people that know how to work that relationship. I was impressed with that. Any comments on the curriculum and instruction report? Any federal funds, Drs. List?
No, ma'am.
Board reports. I have gotten back to posting the PSBA reports. It's a little better. They're giving us a little more information. The new things I'd bring to your attention are the governor's budget analysis that they'll be running on the 10th of March. By that time, we may have some idea whether or not the legislature is actually going to get anything done this year or what they plan to do. But we all know that the governor's budget is definitely not the budget that gets passed. So we're not going to hold our breath on that. I also have, if anyone's interested, PSBA puts out this State of Education every year. If anyone wants to read this, you can take that copy of it along with you. Lancaster County CTC. Anything happening over there?
Other than, well, I'll let you guys know. So they had, I don't know if you remember earlier in the year, trouble getting for their nursing assistant program, you had to have an RN, and then anyway, they could go through, they got approval through the state to then have an LPN, and anyway, so then shortly after that, their RN left because they're just they can't compete with what they're getting paid in the field. So they're actually going to have to stop the nursing assistant program, and they have a certified patient care program though that is essentially the same thing. It's the same curriculum and all that kind of stuff. So any students that were in the nursing assistant are now going to be able to go into the certified patient care technician program. I just wanted to.
It's like a dog chasing its tail. The nursing profession needs people, and because they need them, they pay more, so we can't get them to train new ones.
Right. Yeah, and I do feel for them because they go in depth in the meetings and stuff, but they are trying everything
I'm
they
sure
can.
they are.
But
I'm sure they
it's
are,
just-
but it feeds on itself.
right.
Do you know offhand if we
Unfortunately.
have many students in that particular program?
That I don't know. It's a good question. I can ask. We have a meeting Thursday. I can ask and find out.
Who's like how these things are impacting, our
Right.
kids? That leaves us with the construction committee update. Anybody? Anything good happening?
Nothing to report as far as we know.
Brad, anything to add to nothing?
No. I guess I'll just add that the renovation of
the old middle school is progressing along very well. Demolition is moving along very well. I don't think there've been any major surprises. There are some supply chain issues that we're still working through. So that's just something that the team will need to keep an eye on.
Okay, that about it?
I believe the gymnasium floor is laid.
Getting there. Good. For what little bit I was in that meeting for a while, I was very pleased to hear that the subcontractors are all coordinating and working and meeting together regularly to stay, on schedules, don't trip over each other. That's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Also, Ken did a great job in coordinating with CTC for their students to come in on the 22nd. And so he worked with the principal at Brownstown CTC and our transportation department, so did a lot of work to make that happen.
Yeah, well, would they be doing help, or is that just for observation and touring?
We're gonna do tours. I think we have students from their HVAC program, electrical and plumbing coming. Originally, I was told about 70 total, and that was with the 3 instructors. I think that number's reduced maybe by about 80, so a little over 60 students and staff will have their. So they're gonna be showing up around 10 o'clock. We're gonna meet in the auditorium, give them a little brief overview of the project. I've asked project managers, foremen, the architect, engineers to stay behind after our meeting, and then we're gonna break up into groups and go out through the building.
Awesome.
Oh,
I
that's
have
great.
pizzas coming at about 11:45, so.
Do other schools, have they done this with other school construction projects, or is this a new
Not that I'm
initiative?
aware of, so they jumped at the opportunity.
Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea, thank you.
Yeah, I think that was Brad's.
It was Brad's idea.
Yes, it was.
Well, congratulations. No, that makes, sometimes it's such a good idea, you wonder why everyone didn't think of it. That's why we have Brad.
Do the Brad Millman annual tour.
There you go.
Oh, you want to name it after you.
You are so talkative, you'd make a great tour guide.
I just point.
Yeah, I would do it, that's a pipe.
Are there any other reports from any other board reps? If not, this is another chance for anyone from the public who would like to address the board at this time. Does the board have any comments, announcements, or concerns it would like to add? If not, I will take them, the dates are there, as you can see, it's not, and I will remind you, the dates that are listed on your update aren't just board meetings, there are various things that are happening around the district, if you want to try to attend. If not, then I will take a motion to adjourn for legal and personnel purposes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.